Hello there. Do I look holy in my white? Do I look angelic? Easter's coming up after all. Could you imagine I reveal myself to be the daughter of Christ instead of being the Antichrist? That's right, I'm Satan's favorite daughter, enchantée. I talk about all things related to horror movies. And also, my allergies are flaring up right now. I was just out gardening. Yes, that kind of gardening. And I think I got a bunch of pollen up my nose because now my nose is so itchy and it's red because I can't stop itching it. I must. If you ever found yourself wondering what the Antichrist's agenda was, well, today I'm talking about, is this horror movie good or was I 12? It's a very deeply important investigation, I think, because oftentimes it does beg the question, was this movie good or was I just too young to have discernment? If that sounds good to you, I would love if you click subscribe. I talk about fun stuff like this every single week. Also click the like button and the notification bell, that way you never miss the next video. Today will be a good video for those interested in psychology, as I think I will be revealing a great deal about my upbringing. Based on the movies I was shown way too young, based on the movies my young mind thought were brilliant, let's get into it. Now, I have picked out like 20-something movies that I watched in my youth, from age 4 to like age maybe 19. Many of those were shown to me by my grandfather, and many of them are just outright classics. So I'm gonna go through those first, the ones that were good back then and we all know they're good now. First up, Scream. She lived in my Letterboxd top 4 for a good amount of time. Obviously, Scream is good. I think that I discovered it around age 16, and all 4 of them were on Netflix at the time, so I binged them. I don't know if I watched them all in the same day or if I broke it up into 2 days, but it was all at once. I couldn't get enough as soon as I found them. I was like, whodunits are fantastic, wow. Without even realizing that I was actually also falling in love with the slasher subgenre. Jaws is another one where there's no discussion. My grandfather showed me that movie, I believe at 6 or 7 years old. That was the first true horror movie that he ever showed me. And you know what? For a lot of these, I actually didn't even write them down on the list because I'm not gonna go through and be like, was The Thing from Another World good? Was House of Wax good? Was Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Was Creature of the Black Lagoon good? Creature from the Black Lagoon, excuse me. No, that would be silly. That would be a waste of time. The Birds is an interesting one because I feel the need to mention that I was obsessed with that movie when I was like 6 or 7. My grandpa showed me a couple of these and then I just sort of dove headfirst into cinema. That had to have been around age 5 or 6. I watched The Birds so many times as a kid, I couldn't even tell you. And I don't really know why it wasn't scary to me, but it didn't make me look at the world much differently at all. I felt like it was a really good level for my tiny mind, like a good level of horror. Even though there's kind of like a gross, a little bit bloody dead body, the idea of birds attacking me is actually horrifying. But something about it as a kid, I was just sad. I was like, this is great. And it's not even like a fast-paced movie. It's not particularly exciting. So why my 6-year-old mind was just so fascinated, I don't know. Oh, maybe if I just like cut my nose off, it'll stop itching. You actually don't need to look at the groundhog anymore to determine when spring is coming. Just come and check if Haunted Hippie's nose is bright red. The last one I'll speak of that my grandpa showed me is Signs. This one I thought worth getting into a little bit more just because there are so many Shyamalan haters out there. It's really disappointing because I still actively follow him as a filmmaker. I am always still interested in whatever he does next. I do also need to talk about The Sixth Sense because I first saw that at I think like 11 years old. But to conclude with Signs, I actually think that it's still a perfect film. I love the comedy in it. I love that even though it's very heavy, kind of in like its religious themes, it's really more about the wonderment and the comfort of having something to believe in, especially when you have familial support, you know? Family love is definitely something to believe in. I wish that Joaquin Phoenix would do more likable roles like Meryl. I miss those days. Rory Culkin and Abigail Breslin also just are such a fantastic pairing. Like the casting there, M. Night Shyamalan has either gotten super lucky, or he just has the best eye for child acting in the world. God, I still adore Signs. Okay, that's the last one. The Sixth Sense was shown to me by one of my friends in elementary school, and and I never had the ending spoiled for me before watching it because, hello, I was 11. What I did have spoiled for me that I kind of wish I didn't was that he sees dead people, but that's also something that's unavoidable. I bet that in the theater at that time, I see dead people was like, oh my gosh, I bet that it was an uproar, but I knew that going in. I wish I didn't, but being that young and watching that movie, some parts get really, really scary. My young mind, when that boy turned around and there was like a huge hole in his head, forget about it, forget about it. I was terrified. Also, when that little girl was like throwing up and stuff, I thought that I was going to pass away. So I'm so happy to say that that one also holds up and almost gets better on a rewatch. The first time you're watching it when you don't know the big reveal, it's fun kind of living in the horror elements and stuff, because really you just think that it's about this kid who's trying to get over his fear of being able to see dead people. But on a rewatch, knowing the twist, it makes the movie this beautiful, heartbreaking drama. Like, oh my god, something about that early Shyamalan that just hits in the feels so deep, and still does for me to this day. I had a real evolution with The Sixth Sense from being just purely terrified to rewatching it with my dad when I had taken an edible. I was really baked, so I was still pretty scared, to then now viewing the movie almost completely as a drama. It's been good. I feel like it's just gonna keep getting better on rewatches. Up next, Gremlins was a favorite of mine and my cousin. I want to say that I watched Gremlins for the very first time around 7 or 8. And then I don't know if I watched it multiple times that year with my cousin or if we watched it again the next year perhaps. We loved that movie, and going back and looking at my perception of horror and gore and stuff when I was a child, it makes no sense to me that I was so good with watching Gremlins. Those little freaky animatronic things are so terrifying, and then in the final act when things get really goopy and nasty, as a kid I guess I just was like, yeah, that's fine, that's good with me. But it doesn't make any sense at all because well into my early 20s, I was not good with gore. And now I find it so fascinating, I love it. So maybe that was like an early indicator for sure, but something that, I don't know, still, it just doesn't fully make sense to me in the moment. I did a watch along of that movie and also of the sequel. I had never seen that before and loved them both. Oh my god, the first movie, I give it 5 stars. That old Amblin Entertainment is so comforting. On that note, another movie that I loved as a kid would be Poltergeist. I think that I only really saw it the one time when I was very young, and then didn't end up rewatching it until I was in my late teens or early 20s, maybe when I started my channel. I thought that it was horrifying as a kid, but I loved how funny it was. I loved the zany characters. I felt seen maybe by the little girl, and to this day, it probably still is my absolute favorite horror movie of the 1980s. I love it so much as I've grown, as my brain has developed and stuff. Now I really appreciate the family dynamics. I also appreciate all the connections to Insidious and seeing how much of it inspired that movie. Having more cinema knowledge makes the movie even more enjoyable. I would say that's one that I have also grown to love even more over time. Now, the last movie I'm going to talk about from my youth is Corpse Bride. My DVD, I frankly don't know how it still spins because I've kept the same one that I've had for 20 years. I had that movie on repeat. Oh my god, everything about it, just the aesthetics, it was like visual ASMR to me. I think I've described it like that before. I've also done a watch along of it on my channel, but now that's only available over on the Patreon if you want to see the replay. To this day, I rewatch it maybe every other year, and the ending still brings a tear to my eye. Multiple, actually. When I did that live stream, I was crying on camera. It's true. Love that movie to death. And I spent way more time on the section that's just like obviously good than I meant to. So let's get into the stuff that is quite a bit more questionable. Now, The Lazarus Effect. I want to say that I saw this movie for the first time when I was 16, maybe 17. I saw it in theaters. It was probably one of the very first R-rated horror movies that I saw in theaters, and I thought that it was frightening. I was enthralled. I have loved sci-fi since I was a little kid. If you couldn't tell, got it from my grandpa. And at that time, I had no appreciation for the cast. I think that I knew... Did I know Childish Gambino at that time? Well, Donald Glover, excuse me. I think I did, because I remember it was kind of a big deal when he starred in Spider-Man Homecoming back in like 2017. So yes, I knew him. Yes, I knew him. I had a party trick. It was either junior or senior year. I could whip out the fact that I knew all the words to Bonfire. That is neither here nor there. I rewatched the movie recently, and this time around, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe this whole cast is here. I love Mark Duplass. Olivia Wilde is not bad. There's that girl from Emily that I don't know her name, but then also Donald Glover, and I feel like there's one more person that I'm like, oh, Evan Peters, and Ray Wise is there briefly. The cast of the movie is absurd. I love science gone wrong. I'm the type of girly who does not mind a contrived plotline as long as I'm entertained. I don't care. That third act, woo mama, she really goes down the toilet, but I really like the Lazarus Effect. So that one, was it good or was I just 12? Maybe it's a little bit of both, but for me, it was good. Haunter, have you heard of this movie? Probably not. I'll give you the old synopsis. The ghost of a teenage girl is stuck in a time loop on the day she and her family were murdered. After becoming aware of her death, she tries to protect a young girl from becoming the next victim of the serial killer who murdered her and her family. This movie scared the bejesus out of me as a teenager, but I'm about to drop you some more lore. Between the ages like 14 to 16 maybe, I hosted movie watching nights, specifically horror nights, and they were big, okay? I'm telling you, it was a real who's gonna be there, because we would have between like 15 to 20 teenagers crammed into my parents' living room, watching several movies on this list actually. These movie nights were always facilitated by me. I always had the urge to watch horror. It was so strong, but I was such a little baby. I was so scared of everything at that time. So I needed to facilitate these big groups to like do it comfortably. Besides Scream, I watched all the Scream movies by myself. Haunter was one such movie that I watched so many times as a teenager because I feel like I just showed it to everybody that I knew. So I think a couple years ago now, I go back, I rewatch it. I'm excited. I'm rediscovering a movie from my youth, and I was 12. The movie is just not very good, which is a shame because it's a really interesting premise, but something about it is just rather dull. The plot is kind of weird, and when I was a teenager, I just thought, wow, this is so out there and crazy, but now it's kind of like, and some parts are kind of melodramatic. I think it would have worked really, really well as a dark comedy. Is it too soon for a remake of that movie? Anyway, unfortunately, yes, I gave it 2.5 stars. I think I was only 12, but maybe it'll go back up on another rewatch once I manage my expectations, and I'll still have those comforting memories, so we'll see. The Possession is another such movie watching party movie. This one cycled through, oh god, at least 3 times. I showed a lot of people this movie, okay? When I was a teenager, I thought that it was peak. I thought it was the pinnacle of horror, okay? This is about a little girl who finds this cursed box, or a haunted box, and she ends up being demonically possessed, of course. Kira Sedgwick is there, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan is there. It's a great little cast. I think the movie is a little bit too self-serious because it is produced by Sam Raimi, and there are some kind of over-the-top possession moments, some kind of gross out horror, but it's all played very straight. So if you're the type of person that loves Evil Dead and outlandish body possession stuff, then you might like the movie, but if you need the comedy there too, this is not going to deliver. So for me, the verdict is, it's a little bit of both. It's both. I was 12. This is not a fantastic movie. It's not going to be for everyone, but I still enjoy it as an adult. I was very pleasantly surprised by that. Next up is a movie we all know, The Conjuring. Nobody needs the synopsis for this one. This movie was part of the dominant era of my teenagedom. Insidious and The Conjuring, woo, which we're gonna talk about Insidious too. This movie had me pissing and shitting. Sorry, that was disgusting to say. I'm sorry. This movie terrified me. It was probably the first R-rated horror movie that I saw in theaters. No, because The Lazarus Effect, that one was actually a 2015 movie. And maybe I didn't see that one in theaters. No, but I did. No, but I did. Wait, because The Lazarus Effect is PG-13. I was wrong. Okay, so anyway, I think The Conjuring definitely must have been the first R-rated movie that I saw in theaters. So scary. Scared the bejesus out of me. Now that I've grown, I've come to learn that possession horror isn't really my thing. I grew quite weary of the James Wan-isms and jump scares and paranormal horror of the 2010s. I loved it at the time because that was the horror that was coming out when I was a teenager. It was a really big deal to me. So for The Conjuring, that begs the question, was it really good or was I just 12? The answer might surprise you. When it comes to The Conjuring, I was 12. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But it's for all the reasons that I just said. It's just that style of horror, as it turns out, is not super duper my thing. I will always revisit that movie, not as often as some of my other favorites, because there is the teenage years comfort. I do like the family element. I love the Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga element. So yeah, I'll always go back to it. It's just not a fave. On that note, let's talk about Insidious, particularly Insidious Chapter 2, because I feel like for the most part, there's a lot of love for the original Insidious. It's very much tapered off over the years. Insidious Chapter 2 was a movie that I saw twice in theaters. I could tell you with certainty that that's the first horror movie and maybe the first movie ever that I saw more than once in theaters. It came out when I was a freshman in high school. I believe that it was the first semester. I went with a big group of friends because it was somebody's birthday party. I was like low-key making out with my little boyfriend off and on throughout the entire movie. I have such fond memories of Insidious Chapter 2. And recently, 2 years ago when I met my partner, it was one of the first horror franchises that we watched together. And revisiting Insidious Chapter 2, I was a little bit worried because I have rewatched it periodically over the years, but it had been a while. And Insidious Chapter 2, it was good. It was good. I like Insidious Chapter 2. I would have to do another rewatch to be sure now, but I think that it's probably still my favorite movie of the franchise. Maybe the first one is above that one now. I don't know. I love the kind of Scooby-Doo gang element of it, them trying to uncover this mystery of Parker Crane. I think the villains are super iconic in that film, and I love the family. I love the family. It's why I still loved Insidious The Red Door. I am always here for the Lamberts. Moving on to a weird one, I have a couple that were my faves when I was like literally 4 and 5 years old. First up, James and the Giant Peach. Let me explain. Coming from the man that directed The Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline, there are some gateway horror elements to this film, and I don't even know if I want to call them gateway because I watched this movie a couple days ago and it was making me deeply uncomfortable. This kid ingests this like glowing worm that popped out of a giant peach, and he turns into this stop motion version of himself, and he becomes friends with a bunch of bugs, and terrifying things happen to them. They're riding this giant peach from England all the way to New York. It's a fucked up film. You know what? His parents were killed by a giant rhino? Nothing makes sense about it, okay? It's horrifying. Those were definitely horrors beyond my 4-year-old mind's comprehension, but I loved that movie at the time. I had a real affinity for stop motion. Oh, which another one that's obviously good that terrified me as a child, Coraline, duh. Needless to say, upon my rewatch, the movie did not quite impress. It was way too weird for me. Unfortunately, I was just 4 years old. It's not a movie that I consider to have aged with me very gracefully. It felt worth mentioning because it was unbelievable to me how much more horrifying it was now than it was back then. A young mind can excuse a lot, can rationalize a lot. So anyway, moving on, Arachnophobia is a little bit more fun. I've actually talked about this movie now many times on my channel. It's a spider movie. It's a classic spider movie, and it's good. This one I could see kind of going either way. You might think that it's a little bit too goofy at times, but for a lot of it, they're playing it straight, and I get the genuine heebie-jeebies. I get the creepy crawlies from this movie. So many great practical spider effects. I love it still. There are only 2 more movies that fall into the like elementary age era. The first of which being 1408. Yeah, I was at a friend's house. I don't think this is a movie my parents ever would have shown me. I think it was a little bit too much for my young mind. I remember it being so mind-blowing when I was a kid. It was on a similar level to like The Sixth Sense. Those truly were horrors beyond my comprehension that I could recognize at the time. If you don't know, 1408 follows this skeptic author as he travels to a hotel that has an extremely haunted room, and so he's going to test it out for himself. I ran this movie up 2 years ago now, and I didn't think it was fantastic. I did think that it faltered in that third act, but was such a great setup with such a fantastic performance by Samuel L. Jackson. John Cusack is also great. The first 2 acts are unbelievably strong, and I know that I will continue to revisit the movie. It's very entertaining and gets genuinely freaky, and also there's the added benefit of the fact that it has an alternate ending. You can kind of choose your own adventure with that movie, so that always makes it worth the rewatch because it kind of shakes things up each time. That's kind of what I do with Halloween 6. I alternate. So anyway, that one's fun. Good. The last movie from my kinder years. This is a movie that I really enjoyed when I want to say I was around 7, maybe 8, because I rewatched it several times, and as a child, I could never watch the ending. The same cousin that I watched Gremlins with, I watched The Brain That Wouldn't Die. This is a 1960s movie. It seems seems very low budget. The premise is horrifying. This man gets in a car crash with, I believe, his fiancée, and her head gets severed. So he wraps it up, takes it back to the lab, and keeps her head alive. Now, he also keeps this monster in his closet. So obviously there comes a point where the monster breaks out. After that point, I either had to turn the movie off because I was with myself, or I just closed my eyes and my cousin told me what happened. Several years back now, like maybe the second or third year of my channel, I decided to rewatch it to do my top 10 60s horror films, and I found that it was good. I still enjoyed it. Didn't love, but it's another 3.5 star out of 5. Certainly worth watching, and probably one that I'll revisit maybe once a decade or so. It's an interesting film. It still gets under my skin, the whole premise of it. Maybe even more so now. Because like I said, the young mind can rationalize a lot. It's definitely still one that I recommend. All right, the next one, a highly contentious subject, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I hate to tell you that I believe that I saw this remake before I saw the original film. I was the demographic that they were suckering because I didn't know the difference when I was only like 15 hosting my watch parties. That was a movie that I purposely put off my entire life. I was aware of, I guess, the original. I wasn't really aware of like what even the posters looked like and all that, but I'd heard about the movie and I knew the concept that it had to do with Freddy Krueger coming into your nightmares. And I have suffered vivid dreams all my life, and I say suffered because when you're a child, nightmares are so fucking terrifying. So I just was like, no, as a child, I knew that psychologically the movie could break me, and it terrified me. When I finally mustered up the courage to watch it with like 17 other people, it did indeed frighten me a lot. And it's a movie that I have been known to defend over the years. I haven't given it a rewatch in a couple years, but the last time I watched it, I have to say that it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. I recognize how bad it is, but Kyle Gallner is a comfort actor of mine. I actually really enjoy what they do with some of the dream sequences. I feel like they are making it trippy to more of its full potential than the original franchise. Maybe not better than like Nightmare 4 and 5. Now 5 is awful, don't get me wrong, but the practical effects are among some of the best of the entire franchise. So anyway, there are just some things to enjoy about that movie. Katie Cassidy is another one. The whole package is a little smelly. It stinks a bit, but I still find it worth revisiting. So it's a little bit of both. Dark Skies is up next, and maybe this is one that you are not familiar with. Dark Skies is an alien movie, and it's a very classic gray alien film, kinda a la Signs. And it also follows a dysfunctional family, but rather than like Signs where they're all unique and have these lovable kind of quirks, they all just kind of suck. So that's really fun. Also, it has all the worst tropes of like mystery thing afflicting our family, go down the pipeline of finding the expert that this has affected before, etc., to which the outcome is very obvious and has been very obvious all along. It's a very formulaic film. So upon my rewatch, yes, I was disheartened to learn that I was just 12. This was one of those movies that I probably watched with my cousin. I showed it to a lot of my friends during the teen years. It might have been one of the movie watching party movies, just not one of the more prolific ones like Haunter. I loved it. I thought it was so good as a kid. So it's probably one that I'll introduce to my kids when they're also teens, because I feel like that's the only demographic that can like fully appreciate it. Although I don't know, maybe it's another one where now that my expectations have been managed, I will just enjoy the alien bits of it, because I found it so terrifying as a kid, and some parts of it do still feel very tense to me as an adult. So maybe I'll just go in and enjoy the alien aspect of it and the fact that J.K. Simmons is there. Next up, Oculus. Mike Flanagan's, was it his second feature film? I believe that it was his first studio film. This follows two siblings as they try to reckon with their past, with their parents, and with this haunted mirror. This movie maybe was the first of the 2010s to be the grief as metaphor thing, but because I think it did it in such a trippy way and it wasn't like a huge movie, it didn't get the same kind of love and acclaim as something like The Babadook. The Oculus was kind of ahead of its time. It was kind of a trailblazer. I remember loving it as a teen. I showed it to multiple people. So I was very nervous revisiting it in my mid-20s, thinking, oh God, I have been wrong about movies before that I've been revisiting. And the verdict is, it's good. Oculus is so good. I think that it's probably my absolute favorite Mike Flanagan feature film. He moved into TV and we kind of stopped getting movies from him for a while, which is a total bummer because I'm like, I want another Oculus. Also, the short film, you can find it on YouTube, is also very good. Next up, we have a little movie called The Bye-Bye Man. This movie is infamous on my channel, perhaps. I've spoken about it a lot. I have a dedicated video doing a plot breakdown of that film. I have long said it is the Twilight of the horror genre, but nobody is waking up. I have been trying to shout this from the rooftops and it's just not catching on, and is that a little bit embarrassing for me? Maybe. I believe that the culture will rediscover the Bye-Bye Man, and I will stand by that. Maybe when my platform grows, I'll be able to make it happen myself. So maybe it goes without saying, maybe not. The Bye-Bye Man is a little bit of both, okay? It is so corny. It is not good. It is deeply tropey, tropaceous, if you will. It's all the worst of the paranormal trends of the 2010s combined. And yet I love it. Oh my god, I think it's so ridiculous and so entertaining. So it's both. Next up, we have Lights Out. Now, when it comes to the short film, I think that it is miles better than the feature adaptation. It was something that was meant to be a short, and I feel like David F. Sandberg knew that, but because it went viral and whatever, it kickstarted his career. It follows these siblings who has a troubled mother who seems to have an entity attached to her that only appears in the darkness. If the light's on, then you're safe. I love that premise because at the time when I was a teenager, I was still kind of scared of the dark. That lingered for a really long time. I haven't mentioned that yet in this video. I was deathly afraid of the dark, okay? Maybe it has something to do with my nightmares and stuff. I was a very vulnerable kid, okay? So this was preying on my absolute worst fears. This movie scared me up until like I was in my mid-20s maybe. So upon a rewatch a couple of years ago, imagine my utter shock when I discover that I was just 12. I still enjoy the storyline of the movie. I find the movie to be entertaining. I don't know if I still find it scary. I don't think that I was scared on my last rewatch, but it was a decent time, you know? Not great, but I think that I will still continue to rewatch it. I think it's worth it. Now, The Crazies. Mama, when I tell you, that might be the movie that I showed to the most friends. It was a movie that terrified me every single time, and I feel like it still would. It's a remake of George A. Romero's movie from, I think, 1978. I actually haven't watched it in a couple of years now, but I have watched it while in my 20s, and I got almost all of the same feelings that I got when I was a kid. It's good, and I feel like underrated. Again, I don't want to doubt myself or anything. I do want to give it one more rewatch just to be sure. But that one, it should really be a cult classic. Now, The Shallows. This movie impressed me greatly when I was 16 years old. Similarly to House of Wax, I think that I discovered Yamekoi Seira's House of Wax around the same time, but I grew up watching Jaws. I always loved Jaws. So finding this shark movie as a teen, and it starred Blake Lively, who I loved from Gossip Girl. What? Oh yeah, loved The Shallows. Upon a rewatch, about a little over a year ago now, to my great pleasure, I discovered that it's still very entertaining. It's good. It's one of the better shark movies. There aren't that many good shark movies out there, okay? And we're fed slop shark movies almost every single year because some people really do eat that up. That is their bread and butter. The Shallows is a step above all that noise. So yeah, it's one that I still recommend. In a similar era, we have Happy Death Day. This one's kind of a fan favorite, is it not? I probably should have included it in the first section of this video. I think most people do enjoy Happy Death Day. It started off, I think, more with like a cult following, and then now over the years, as Christopher Landon's fandom has grown and stuff, we're all like, hey, where's part 3? So that one's maybe a little bit more obvious. Something a little bit more obscure is A Cure for Wellness. This is directed by Gore Verbinski, and he had the same DP that he had on The Ring, so it's a very similar aesthetic. This movie is about a businessman who is sent by his company to retrieve one of their investors from this wellness center in Switzerland, and obviously something goes awry, okay? Everything is not as it seems, not even Mia Goth. This movie is gonna be too weird for a lot of people to handle, and I have even put off rewatching it for several years now because that ending is such a fucking turn off. I won't spoil it, don't worry. The movie feels very obvious for a very long time, but I promise you the ending is not what you think it is. And it's nasty, nasty boots. It's one that I do kind of have the urge to rewatch because I know that the visuals are just so gorgeous, and Dane DeHaan has like a punchable face and yet an enjoyable one to watch. And also I love Mia Goth and Jason Isaacs, and I love Gore Verbinski. My god. Oh, Hearts of the Caribbean King. ending. But a couple of years ago, I do recall, I thought, wow, yeah, I was just 12. A movie with that off-putting of an ending that puts you off from rewatching the movie for years on end. Like, I've been procrastinating my rewatch for years. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, I was kind of just 12. But maybe this is wrong of me, but I do kind of want to recommend it to you. Just because you have to see it to believe it, so. Anyway, just a couple of more here. First up, we have The Gallows. This came out, I think, when I was 14 or 15, and it was a found footage movie, and I hadn't seen too many of those as a kid. By that point, I don't even think that I'd seen Paranormal Activity. I didn't watch that until later in life. I don't know if I had seen another found footage movie at that point in my life. Had that been my first one? That can't be. I'll do some digging and I'll find out, but I think it actually might have been. I do. In 1993, a freak accident involving a noose kills a teenager named Charlie during a high school production of The Gallows. 20 years later, on the eve of the play's revival, students become trapped in the auditorium with no way of calling for help. I loved this movie at the time because I saw it in theaters and it scared the bejesus out of me. This was the era of the jump scares of all the paranormal stuff, and because this was some of my first exposure to that, oh my god, it got me good. If I had Letterboxd at age 15 or whatever, I probably would have given the movie like 4 stars. I thought that the story was crazy and super interesting, and it was following people my age, so I just thought it was nuts. So imagine my dismay when I revisit the movie and I realize just how bad it is. I don't think it's as bad as most people, but still, I only give it 2 stars. So that's quite bad, it is. But it's another one that I have this morbid curiosity. Could it really have been that bad? If I found it so fascinating as a teenager, why don't I just try again? But no, I think that it has like a 1.8 or just something stupid on Letterboxd, so I really shouldn't follow those instincts, but I probably will at some point. From a similar era, we have the movie Unfriended. I don't think I watched it when it came out, but I probably did just a couple years later. So that was also part of my introduction to found footage. I had never seen a movie that all took place just on a computer screen. What? Movies can do that? What do you mean? This one terrified me at the time, despite never being a Skype girly and never having friends that were Skype girlies. Like, this was foreign to me, but still it felt very realistic. And honestly, I do think that the story is good. It was a little bit behind the times in terms of its cyberbullying element. Like, that was really pushed in the early 2000s. So maybe that's why this movie wasn't ever the biggest hit. But I actually feel that the story is still even kind of relevant. I don't think it's a great movie. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but with a budget of only $1 million, I still find it pretty impressive. The human mind, it's amazing. We're so creative. I love movies. Next up, we have The Boy. This was a cultural phenomenon in my household. Not that I watched it a million times, but just that it was a release that I was so interested in at the time, and I could not wait to see it in theaters. This follows a woman who gets hired to travel to this giant mansion and watch this elderly couple's son while they're away. But when she gets there, she comes to find out that it's not a real boy. It is a porcelain doll. Conceptually, is that not so brilliant? That's so fantastic. Also, the twists and turns of that movie at the time blew my mind because of some of the trends that I've already been talking about. It really diverges from some of those, like, completely. So I couldn't believe it. I watched that movie more than once as a kid, for sure, but it's a movie that I'm pretty sure I still don't own on physical media, which is weird because it was a pivotal moment. That was a big cultural moment for yours truly. So a couple of years ago, I think that it's streaming on Netflix probably. I'm kind of excited. I throw it on. And I was 12. Oh boy, I was 12. I still like the idea of the story. I think that the execution is pretty weak and will probably only be super effective for people of, you know, more of the PG-13 demographic. It was perfect for me at the time though. Like, I love that movies like The Boy exist, even if I don't enjoy them so much now. I still think that the twist is insane. Conceptually, that's, yeah, it's a lot. But once again, is it too soon for a remake of The Boy? I think most definitely it is, especially when that sequel just crashed and burned. But I don't know, fun concept, fun twist. I know that this audio is gonna sound like shit, so I will try to be brief. I thought of movies that I totally missed talking about while making this video, so let's just run through them super quick. The Uninvited, I was terrified of when I was a teenager. It might have been one of our movie watching night movies. There were parts where I had to close my eyes, particularly there's a part where there's some back body horror, and you'll know it when you see it. Yeah, I could never watch that when I was younger. I rewatched it as an adult, and and it's a little bit of both. It definitely has a lot of cheesy early 2000s isms, but overall, I find the movie to be super enjoyable, and I don't feel guilty about that. Next up is Shrooms. This one I watched with the same cousin that I watched like Gremlins with and a whole bunch of other stuff. We watched this one maybe around age 16 or 17, and at the time, I thought that it was like a trippy, fun experience, and at that time, I thought, wow, is this really what could happen when you do shrooms? Upon a rewatch, it was so dull. I don't know if I would maybe like it on yet another rewatch, but going back and watching the movie after doing a little bit of shrooms yourself, it's just not good. It's so unrealistic, and that was like taking me out. So now that I know that, perhaps on another rewatch, that'll be fine. House of Wax is another one that I definitely watched with my cousin and maybe watched with a group. Loved it then, love it now. I think it is so much fun. I adore that movie. I also forgot to mention that as a wee 8-year-old, my dad showed me the original trilogy of Jurassic Park, and of course, that goes without saying. I was 12. God, those movies just suck. No, I'm just playing. I love all three of them. I love the whole original trilogy still. Okay, that'll do it. I'm sorry I forgot about so many of these, but the video was already pretty long as is. I wouldn't be surprised if there were another few titles that slipped through the cracks. So I'm gonna head out. Bye. Anyway, I know I've been talking forever. I have just one more movie for this video today. And no, my nose has never stopped itching this entire time. But that brings us to The Woman in Black. This movie was a big deal culturally for me as well because it was the first or the second movie that Daniel Radcliffe did after doing Harry Potter. And I was a Harry Potter fiend up until I was like 20 years old. So I was following Daniel Radcliffe, yes. The first movie he technically did was Horns, but I don't even know if that one released to theaters. I'm not sure. That was not on my radar at all. So to me, the first movie he did after Harry Potter was Woman in Black. It follows this man named Arthur who is a widower, and he goes to this grand estate because he's an accountant and he's sent there to basically get it in order. But the catch is he's out there all alone, and at night the tide comes in and he's trapped there. You know I wanted to end this video on a good note. The Woman in Black is good. It has great acting from Daniel Radcliffe. It's a really interesting ghost story. Like, I love the whole story of it. The aesthetic is maybe the best part. It is dripping in this gothic atmosphere, as it should be for a period piece. The location is just fantastic. Oh god, yet another case though where the sequel really just kind of crashes and burns. There is potential for that IP. I hate that when there is so obviously franchise potential, but then they squander it with the first sequel and then they're like, well, okay, guess we won't. Not that it doesn't need a franchise, but I just love the atmosphere so much. Like, I would go back to that house again and again. Anyway, yeah, it held up, surprisingly. It's not a favorite of mine. It's not amazing. It's also very bleak, so that might not be for you, but it's entertaining. It's a nice watch. It's a watch that's worth it. So that is where I will leave you today. There might have been a handful of movies that I forgot about, but that was enough. That's enough for now. Please, I would love to know movies that you thought were just amazing as a kid that you grew up and realized were kind of booty, and then also the happy stories of the movies that you realized were still amazing. Now, I do lots of fun content like this on my channel. It also carries over onto my Patreon. Depending on which tier you join, you get a bonus video every single week. If you're part of the $10 tier, then you also get access to watch along re-uploads, and so you get multiple bonus videos a week. Then I also have a second channel where I talk about physical media. I am a big physical media girly. I also am a travel girly, so that's more of my hobby channel. I post about physical media, travel, whatever I want. So check it out. Everything you need is linked down below. But more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and that I catch you in the next one. Bye.